Hello everyone, this is LevelUp IAS and we are going to discuss in this short video about Israel and Palestine. Now, I'm very well aware that you are also very well aware that right now a very serious crisis is going on, and therefore it is required that we go through the very basics and nitty-gritties of Israel and Palestine issue. Now, let me just tell you first of all that it's a very detailed topic. It has a lot of intricacies, okay, and we have to learn all of them one by one. Now, trying to put everything in that in a single video lecture, it will be somewhere more than 3.5 hour long. And every time when you'll be hearing, Acha, what happened in 2021, what happened in 2022, and now what is right now happening in 2023, there will be some new thing coming from the historical times which is going to affect right now present times, and therefore it is really required to have a perspective about the international relations, what is going on in Israel and Palestine. You need to understand a bit of what happened in that particular region, uh, on the side of the Mediterranean, as well as you also need to understand what happened on the global platform in whole of 19th, 20th and 21st century. Okay, it is not something which all started only in 1948. There's a history which goes back to time immemorial type thing. Okay, so let's begin the class, and what we'll do is we'll start with the very basic idea, the fundamentals. Okay, so if the Palestinians are entering from Gaza into the main territory which is controlled by Israel, or the Israelis are now re-attacking the territories in Gaza, and also there have been skirmishes in West Bank every now and it is continuously happening right now. It is not the most vital and the best time to discuss in detail that what is happening on day-to-day basis, and that is also not very helpful for you from the examination point of view. But you also need to understand at the same time that what happened in decade back or 2 decade back or 3 decade back or even centuries back, which has created a situation where these two sides are fighting each other. Okay, so that is something we have to focus on, and that is also something which will be asked in the examination every now and then. What is exactly happening, which side is attacking and which territory, that is not going to be asked, except there might be a question कि अच्छा, there might be a mapping question, but in that case also they will be focusing more on Sinai or other areas and not specifically the point of Tel Aviv or Jerusalem के बीच का distance कोई आपसे नहीं पूछेगा. And if you are following news channel and all, that is what must be happening right now. So always keep in mind that for your examination purposes, that is not at all required. Now let's move forward, and let me just first of all tell you that where the story began, or what you need to understand first of all, that you might have heard about anti-Semitism, and we'll start from there only. We are going to talk about foundation. Okay, or what happened is no one really gives a perspective back in the day. So you need to understand that yes, there is a whole story, biblical tale, that how the Jewish population was pushed out of their initial homeland in Jerusalem and all that. That's a biblical story, and that you must have heard about. But in the modern times, or I should not even say modern times, in the medieval times also, 12th century CE onwards, what all happened, that is something you need to understand. And what happened with the Jewish population, uh, how and why they behave or react in the manner as in Zionist groups were formed, that you need to understand. And then I'll just tell you what all topics we have to discuss in the coming series of classes. Okay, so that's how we will do it. So first of all, this is just a map, and this is easily available on Wikipedia also. This is nothing very exceptional. This is actually a tale of how the Jewish population, okay, were pushed out of their native land in Europe. Okay, we are not yet talking about anywhere else but Europe, and we are not even talking about the Nazi period. I'm very well aware that you must have heard a bit about what happened in Nazi Germany between 1933 and 1939 and post 1945 till that period with the Jewish population. But that is not something we are going to discuss. I just want to give you basic idea that a basic sense of anti-Semitism, that is hatred towards the Jewish community, existed at a lot of places in Europe, and that is something which led to many capable Jewish people who came into the leadership role and then went on to look for alternative for the Jewish community. So if you'll see this just in this map, so whether it is Spain or France or Germany, everywhere what you are seeing, people are moving out. So from Germany, once they moved out to Poland, and we then know from Poland also they were forced out in between 1933 and 39, or after 1939 when the Germans attacked Poland on September 1st when the World War started. So this is just to give you an idea. Now for examination in India, you are not expected to remember or mug up these things in detail, but you just need to understand that from the almost all the countries in Europe, they have faced extermination, or they have been pushed out. This is just a picture on the left on the screen that shows the Jewish people being beaten up by the commoner in England in the 13th century. Now, in the 12th century, you will see this is again a listing of what all happened in between. So you can go through it. I'll just give you a basic idea that in the modern times also you will see that 1290 England's King Edward I issued an edict of expulsion banning all Jews. The people of Jewish community were not allowed in whole of England between 1290 and 1656. So that is a very long period of time. So they were pushed out from there. Then you might have heard about the 13th, 14th century pandemic, the Black Plague. During that period also, the Jewish community was again and again accused that it's something has been done from their side, they have done something. So they were persecuted during that period also. Fine. Spanish Inquisition led to the forced conversion and expulsion of Spanish Jews again in 1492. So this is a listing which they have faced again and again. The one of the important case which if you want to remember you can is about the Captain Alfred Dreyfus, a Jewish officer in France who was charged and obviously executed by the French government, and he was charged of sedition. But the reason why he was accused became an accused and then declared a culprit so easily was nothing to do with whether he was involved or not, but more to do with the issue that he was from the Jewish community. So that also showed the very feeling of anti-Semitism. Fine. So these are some of the examples which are mentioned, and finally you already know very well that what happened during the Nazi Germany is reign when Adolf Hitler reigned on Germany between 1933 and 1945. He already has written anti-Semitic ideas, propagated those ideas from his autobiography Mein Kampf till the time he lived on this earth. And we saw because of that policy only, more than 6 million Jews who were directly exterminated as a minted policy of the German government. Now, one of a very important political science scholar, Hannah Arendt. Hannah Arendt has also worked on this, and she has explained this very situation by highlighting that how any society can go to an extent of doing extreme things, and many a time they don't even realize that what they are doing. And she says that even the common German population many a time supported the executionary pattern of behavior of the Nazi party, and that is something which she named as banality of evil. Now, this very concept, banality of evil, is something you will learn in your political science course separately in the foundation batch itself. Or whenever you are reading about Hannah Arendt's work, you will learn about her going and attending the Adolf Eichmann's hearing in Israel in 1961-62, and subsequently hearing to Adolf Eichmann, she came up with these observations, which were then led her only evolve this concept of banality of evil. Fine. So that's just a basic idea of what happened. Now, when you'll be reading, and this is a one picture you must be getting to see all the places, all the time, everywhere. Okay, and I know very well that you must have seen this thing. Okay, this is actually there are 4 or 5 different pictures. This is actually the one which is approved and sanctioned one, and not the one which is like roaming around like that. And we know it very well that Until 1946, what was totally called as Palestine, how the Jewish population started moving in, and subsequently their representation, the uh, native Palestinian representation in their own land, it started reducing. And after 1948, things transformed totally. So much so that 1948, the war happened. We know this was the shape of the area controlled by the uh, Israeli government and the Palestinian government, and subsequently the area in control of Israeli government further reduced. The area in control of Palestinian people reduced, and the Israeli one increased. Now, one thing you have to understand, that you must have observed that while talking here, I switched from the Jewish population to the Israeli government, because the way the Israeli government works is a very different thing than normal, just the Jewish population. The Israeli government is a bigger concept, and the Jewish population is a mere subset of that. Okay, Israeli government has more affiliation to the concept of Zionism. Okay, Zionism, and we will talk about it in a minute. Okay, Zionism. Now, so we won't be focusing too much. I am not going to tell you exactly where is West Bank and where is Gaza, because I hope that if you have landed up on this video, you are aware that much. So let's move forward, and directly let me tell you these two pictures. Okay, these two men are very important. Uh, you need to understand who these people are, and you need to understand what they have done. So I have started telling you the story from the beginning, that the kind of persecution with the uh, Jewish population has to face in Europe, and because of that, Ben Yehuda, Ben Yehuda, a guy from who was born in what we now call as Belarus, moved to where? Jerusalem, when 1884, and started publishing a newspaper in Hebrew. The newspaper was called as 𝐂𝐨𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐭. Now his newspaper was not only, it was, the important thing is, it was published in Hebrew. It was actually the first newspaper to be published in Hebrew, and before it, almost everyone, even the Jewish people who were living in Jerusalem, they were usually also speaking only in Arabic, and Hebrew was actually a more classical language, or one can say the language of the faith, which was only mentioned in the earlier uh, biblical writings and those kind of thing. Okay, that's it. It was not used in common parlance till 1884. He started to publish newspaper in it, and then because he was publishing the newspaper continuously, he needed to come up with new words, because there were many things which haven't in Hebrew language, there was not even devised that word. So he was one who devised those words in Hebrew language, and he basically provided the whole lexicon of Hebrew. And from here the story starts. Always understand, whenever you are reading about any concept of nationalism anywhere in the world, language plays a very decisive role in it. And that's why I'm again and again mentioning that the story starts in the modern times from the work of Ben Yehuda. So Ben Yehuda was alive till 1914, and he kept on publishing in newspaper till then. And it played a very vital role, because now not only more and more Jewish people were coming to Jerusalem, but they were also uniting, because they have a common language. Okay, so that is very important role he played. Now the other guy about whom we have to talk about is Theodore Herzl. Now, what's so important about him? So, just like Ben Yehuda, he was also a migrant from Europe. He and his family also faced persecution in Europe, and so he also came, and he didn't even move to Israel or Jerusalem immediately, but he started something else. He started, or he called in the first Zionist Congress. Now, that also in Basel, Switzerland. You might have heard about Basel while talking and listening about Basel norms. Yes, the same Basel. Okay. Now, what is so important about him? Now, the word thing which is need to be read here is about Zionist and Zionism. For that, you need to understand the very concept of Zion. Now, Zion is a promised land as per the Old Testament for the Jewish population. So the story goes that 5,000 years back, okay, when the Jewish population was pushed out, they were assured, okay, that one day they will be brought back to the promised land, and that promised land in the uh, Jewish text, Jewish faith, all everyone knows is called as Zion. So Zionism is basically a group of people whose ideology is based on the idea that there is a promised land and we are going to get that promised land for ourselves. Now you can understand this has nothing to do directly with the Jewish faith, but it is evolving from the Jewish faith. Those people who are, whether they are practicing Jewish or not, that's another issue. The point is that these are the people who are fighting for the promised land to the Jewish people. And that's where the Zionist and Zionism concepts come in. Okay, so you have to keep that thing in mind. Now, once you understand that thing, you will see that the first Zionist Congress was called in 1897 in Basel, Switzerland. And almost all the important people who were from the Jewish community, even the Rothschild, the famous banker family, they also attended the meeting. And by 1904 they became big enough that they started looking opportunities that where they can exactly shift most of the Jewish population and call that place to be a homeland for them. And it is not only that Jerusalem and the area around it, because that was something which was anyway they were thinking that was the best option they could have, but they also looked for other option. Because for example, if you'll read, you will get to know there is also a very famous thing called as Uganda scheme. There were once upon a time in 1904, Herzl only also tried to pass a resolution where they planned to shift the Jewish population in what the Britishers control Uganda was. Okay, so that even that very thing they tried, but that plan was then rejected by many people. But that is also, so you need to understand that the role he played, okay, Theodore Herzl, that is very important for the whole Zionist scheme. Now, again and again, when you will be watching, when you will be reading next 1, 2, 3 months about the Israel-Palestine debate, you will be hearing about this very word Zionism again and again. There is a whole faction of Jewish community who considered themselves that yes, we are practicing Jewish, but we are not Zionist. Who are these people then? These are the people who are born and brought up around the world. They are also in Iraq, they are also in New York, they are also in Europe. They are practicing Jewish, but they don't follow the very idea that Jerusalem or any other place is basically a defined homeland for all the Jewish people. Okay, although the state of Israel actually accept this plan. So even if you are Jewish by faith and you are born anywhere, whether in Ethiopia or South Sudan, if you go to Israel, you will be given a refuge and then supported to move towards citizenship without asking any further question, unless and until obviously you are not involved in some illegal activities and all that. Now this is one of the very famous picture which I wanted to show you. This is the Zionist Congress, the first Zionist Congress. It's their protocol and one of the famous picture which shows their meeting. Okay, just to give you some idea about it. Now, the next thing which you need to understand before you can even jump into studying this whole concept is Sykes-Picot Agreement. Now, Sykes-Picot Agreement, May 1916. This is even great and very interesting. So, in this agreement, a lot of things happened. What was going on? If you have some very basic, you need to understand some basic things about the very First World War. First World War, 1914 to 1919. Okay, somewhere around 1916, what we saw? We saw that the Central Powers, which was Germany and Ottoman Empire, were together, and the British side and the French and the British, they were hoping that what can be done to win against the Ottomans. Now, the one easy step which the Britishers took was not only to push against the Ottomans through the Mediterranean Sea, but also to push against them from the eastern side. You might have heard about Lawrence of Arabia. So, Lawrence of Arabia was a British officer who played a very vital role in bringing in the Arabic tribe leader, the Bedouin tribemen, who were subsequently one of them were also the Al Saud family. These people came together and they attacked the Ottoman Empire from this route. This route. Fine. What you need to understand is this was surely putting pressure on the Ottoman Empire. And at this time, the Britishers assured the Arabic tribesmen that once they will win the war, they will hand over this whole territory to them. This is a basic idea which some people say that the Britishers assured them, some people say that Lawrence of Arabia assured them on his own without taking permission from senior authorities. Okay, and all those conceptualities are there. But at the same time, Britishers and the French demarcated among themselves. Okay, and they hoped or they expected that after the victory on the Ottoman Empire, how we are going to divide this territory. Okay, at the same time, to get the support of the Jewish population in Europe, you will see that the then Secretary of State, in one of a question which was raised by the famous banker Rothschild only, he wrote in to him stating that the promised land can be delivered to you and your people, that is the Jewish community, if it comes in control of the Britishers. And then you will see that after 1916, all of a sudden the Jewish population all around Europe, whether it was in Germany also, it is said that they were much more closer to the English side, and that created a lot of chaos. Achha. Now, you just see the Sykes-Picot Agreement and you will understand what really happened. After the war, in 1916 only, this agreement was signed, but implemented obviously in 1919. It was implemented in such a manner that obviously the Britishers have assured the same territory to three different people, three different sides, and that cannot be implemented. So neither they kept the word with the Arabs, neither they kept the word for the Jewish people. All they kept is the agreement they had with the French, because they were a nation state and they were the biggest threat, if not a supporter at that time. So the agreement was done. The agreement was done in such a manner that it was decided what we now call as Lebanon went to France. What we now call as Syria went to France. What we now call as Iraq, what we call as Jordan, and what we call as Palestine, it actually went to British control. The story is so much close to India that the many of the cities in what we now call, which is now controlled by Israel, were actually taken over by the Indian forces of the British Indian Army. If you'll ever come to India, Delhi, in India only, if you ever come to Delhi, you will see that the very famous, the Prime Minister's Museum, which was earlier called as the Teen Murti Bhavan, that very road is called as Haifa Road. That is dedicated to the city of Haifa, which is in Israel, and it was the British Indian Army personals who took over that territory from the Ottoman Empire for the Britishers. So the Sykes-Picot Agreement also you need to understand. Now you will get to understand by this time that obviously it is going to bulge up into a big crisis if the same territory has been assured to three different parties, and obviously two are not able to have access to that territory. So that you keep in mind. That's the picture of Balfour, Lord Balfour, who wrote this famous letter to Lord Rothschild, and that's where the whole story starts. Okay, so this is the very basic idea which I thought like it will be important to tell you. And before anything else, now I'll just need to tell you that this is actually the listing which we are going to approach one by one, or two or three topics in one small video in the coming days, and we will complete all the topics and we'll make a list or a whole set of videos so that Israel and Palestine could be covered in properly. Right now we talked a bit about Ben Yehuda. We also talked about Theodore Herzl. I told you a bit about Uganda scheme, and we also talked a bit about Balfour Declaration. In the coming classes, we'll talk about what Britishers did with the territory of Palestine, under their control in the almost 28-year period. Then subsequently we'll talk about what happened in 1948 and thereon, and finally we'll be able to exactly reach to the point where you'll be able to understand that what is happening right now, why it is happening, what what Hamas is doing, why they are doing so, what are their reasoning, right or wrong. There are two different sides. Okay. As an aspirant of a civil service examination right now, it's not your job to decide that what they are doing is right or wrong. Obviously from the front it says things it's wrong. Obviously violence is always be considered be wrong, but both sides will have their arguments. So what you have to do is just refer to our arguments and not take a stance as of now. Okay. So we'll be proceeding with that things in this very manner. If someone is planning to follow this, make sure that this will help you in preparation a lot regarding Israel Palestine issue. So let's catch up in next video. After this we'll start with exodus of Palestinian population and what happened in 1948 in the first Israel and Palestine war, which is subsequently called as the Nakba Day, as the day of catastrophe by the Palestinians. Thank you, and that will be all for now.